Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Computer Wednesday, we're going to talk about a very interesting deal, Airtel Oneweb deal. So let's dive right into it. Well, first you have to understand what the heck is Oneweb. Oneweb is a basically private company that is satellite internet provider. At least that was their aim. So you have to understand it this way. They have many satellite basically internet provider. You have fiber internet providers, you have phone line internet providers, you have cable line internet providers. So you have internet providers that are using different methods. One of those methods is satellite. There are many already existing satellite internet providers, but they are not very good, and they're only used as a last resort, as in it's not your choice. It's like, I have nothing else, that's why I'm choosing this. So this company wanted to change that. Now their foundation was around 2012, so they are old company. And to give you a context of that, if SpaceX was working before this, they have not talked about this, and they're public talking about okay, we are actually building a Starlink constellation. That happened after this. So on paper at least, OneWeb is older than SpaceX. Now they're aiming to use multiple satellites, as in huge constellation, which will be small satellites around 150 kilograms. To give you a context, 200 plus is Starlink's satellite, and they're gonna use on phase 1 650 satellites and 18 orbital planes. So think of an equator as one plane. So you take equator, you tilt it in polar one, and you have 18 of those. That was their level 1 plan. Basically get the whole coverage done based on throughput. Increase satellites. If you don't need it, don't increase it. So but this was bare minimum. They have to have 650 satellites in order to get it going. And their aim orbit is around low earth orbit, so they are below 5,000 kilometers, and target point was 1200 kilometers. So this is what OneWeb is. Now they went bankrupt. Now, to be fair, world ended in 2020, so fundamentally stock market crash was inevitable. Now things happen. Now you have to understand, in stock market, many times you have value that is perceived value, that people assume that you you have a service that people want to buy. But sometimes, especially in market crash, many times people are like, dude, I get it, you have something valuable, I don't need it at this point in time. So you could literally have a lot of assets, as in $1 billion assets, but it could just go poof. So this happened with this puppy, and they lay off around, they had 530 plus employees, and they reduced that number to around 70 to 80. So fundamentally serious loss in company. And they have successfully launched 70 plus satellites so far in space. So, and these are not prototype satellite, these are final satellites. These were if everything was working normally, they would launch more and more and more, and slowly cover their whole basically planet into their satellite constellation. That was their aim. They were working full steam ahead, but because of that market crash and the fact SpaceX was going ludicrously fast compared to this puppy, 70 versus 700 satellite, their stock market was no, we can't handle you. So what do they actually have that is worth any value? Because whenever you declare bankruptcy, government entity or something like that will be okay, we're gonna sell whatever you have to pay the debtors, people who paid you loan. So they have what we call constellation tech. They have very few companies that can make satellite, even fewer who can make a satellite constellation, and even fewer who can make a satellite constellation that has giant throughput. So that is some serious IP. That's not a laughing matter. However, something more interesting they have, it's a license for a radio band. That specific radio band is very coveted. Everybody wants to have that. So OneWeb have already done acquisition part of it. It's a very tedious task, very extra hoo-ha is there in this. So they have taken care of that. So that is why at least there is something of value that people want to buy. So declaring bankruptcy gives some hope that some people who paid YOLO amounts of money into this get something out of it. Now purchase. What the hell happened? One thing you have to understand, this UK went from Great Britain to laughing matter. Basically they lost surprisingly large amount of independence, and they became the only country so far as of I know that had the ability to launch a satellite into space and lost that ability. They basically, that's how bad European Union was for Great Britain. So they are no, Brexit will happen, and it has already happened at this point in time, again finalizing everything. However, even though Great Britain poured a lot of money, YOLO amounts of money into Galileo, European Union is deciding that Galileo will no longer give the encrypted part to United Kingdom. So United Kingdom military can use normal Galileo, you and I can do that, but they will not get the high resolution variant. Basically there is an unencrypted part that your mobile receives, everything works, everything is fine and dandy, but there is an encrypted part. If you can decode that, you get three-dimensional data height, width and depth, and precision. It goes one-fold. So you, instead of being 10 meter by 10 meter, I'm inside this 10 meter, you go to I'm inside this 1 meter cube. That happens if you have the access to basically encrypted part. That's what people say military GPS. That's what they are talking about, because that military GPS receivers can decode that encrypted part. So idea was United Kingdom needed something like that. So they're like, okay, we're gonna make a homemade Galileo using this system. Now, can it be done? Thankfully, yes, but it will be low precision because again, it's inherently not designed for that. However, you can compensate for low precision by having hundreds of satellites, and this puppy was planning for 600 satellites. So they're like more than good enough. If they have actually done that, they might have actually exceeded, not by accuracy of single satellite, but by having so many, they would have exceeded the quality of Galileo. But as of now, as of me making this video, even though Great Britain had bought this company, the plan for converting that puppy has stopped. They are no longer doing that, and that happened in September. Now, be mindful, this is a government system, so there is a very good chance by the time I'm talking about this, it would have already changed. So, but be mindful of that. Government is no longer pursuing that route. So let's talk about the Indian player, Bharti Global. Now, Bharti Global, we know it as basically Airtel. Is one of the brand that is owned by Bharti Global, and Bharti Global is a very big player in Indian market and a really big player in African market. So they want something to give them an edge, because in Indian market they are losing badly, so to say, from Jio. Now, whether people like it or not, but market is no longer like, okay, Airtel is equal competitor. They are like slowly losing. So they need something that like gives them the edge to go against Jio. Now, to fundamentally do that, they needed around $1 billion of bailout, so to say. So 50% was paid from UK government and 50% was paid from Airtel. So both of these companies got around 45%. So 45% of stake is owned by Airtel, and 45 controlling interest is owned by UK, because if government is buying something, they have to control it. They cannot be like, okay, I just have a stake in this. No, government money does not work that way, because it's a taxpayer money. It's not someone's pocket money. So fundamentally, they have to have that. So what we call golden shares and all that jazz, UK government controls. So if UK government decides to sell it to someone else, Airtel cannot stop it. If Airtel wants to sell it, they have to get permission from UK department. So be very mindful. This is how the chain of hierarchy is here. Now, what happened to other 10%? That 10% went to all previous debt holder. For example, SoftBank is having a really hard time after WeWork and Qualcomm and Airbus. So you can understand there is like serious amount of money were poured into the system and serious amount of money lost. So the reason why this 10% is still there is simply because, imagine, hopefully, let's say this works out, this company who actually laid the foundation of this corporation would be like, yeah, at least we get something out. And if the stock value goes ludicrously high, let's say how Apple stock value reaches like 1 billion or 2 billion or trillion, so in those sort of scenarios, this company will get their money back. So that is like, compromise they had to do. So this is the purchase aspect. And again, this is a legal pep talk. So there is like a whole PhD you have to do to understand what the hell is going on. So you have to understand, the company flat out referenced SpaceX. It's like, SpaceX doing this, we are no longer viable. That's why nobody wanted to buy this technology, because there are many companies, many companies that are actually providing satellite internet as we speak. There are companies that uses geostationary satellite. Heck, in my country, as in like in India, BSNL does that, but they are generally used for rural ATMs. Basically ATM, automated machine, they need a communication link, and that at that location there nothing else is there, so they use satellite link. It's there, it's a normal thing. Heck, you could have been in a flight in an aeroplane that has satellite internet at this point in time. So it's no longer like, oh, only one company have thought of that. Like, many people have thought of that. There are many people who are using MEO satellites, as in medium earth orbit, and they give they give a good compromise. They don't need hundreds of satellites, but they don't need 3 satellites. So 3 is the bare minimum you need for earth coverage at geostationary. You come down to MEO, you need around 20-24 to cover the whole planet, but you will get it's best of both worlds. You don't need hundreds of satellites. So there is company that provides internet service to US government, US army, and public, if you can pay for it. So there are a lot of people who are doing that. However, SpaceX is like going bonkers. They are like, okay, we go full YOLO on this. So you have to understand this from SpaceX financial perspective. SpaceX is not printing money. It's a private company, so it's only held by investors. There is no stock market here. So their perceived value, even though it's ludicrously high, does not translate into money. So SpaceX is like, okay, we're gonna get 50% of our development fund from NASA for Falcon 9, let's say, and we're gonna put other 50% from our end, basically from its personal fortune or other investors. And once the rocket is done, we're gonna provide launch services to US Army, to US NASA, to other things like Bangladeshi satellite system and all that jazz. So you're gonna provide services to all those, and from that the profit will go into 2 places: SpaceX and the investors who have invested a lot of money. So at this point in time, SpaceX does not have anything that is like printing money. So like for example, Amazon has a money printer known as Amazon Web Services. Everything else, yeah, they make a little bit of, like, few billion here and there, but like if you want to talk billions, Amazon Web Services. So same goes here. So SpaceX is in a position where they have money making capital, but it's not very serious and it's not their own. They have to rely on market for them to, like, somebody has to use their services in order to send a satellite, in order for them to make money. So they are like, let's cut out the middleman. So they are starting to build what we call Starlink. Now, if it works out, assuming if it works out the way they are expecting, it will be a $10 billion money printing machine if it works out. So that's their aim. That's why SpaceX is doing this. Now, fundamentally speaking, they themselves know they cannot do this. Fundamentally they cannot do this. So they're like, wait a minute, if they can't do this, why they have, they're building, why the heck they are actually launching satellites, and they have 700 plus satellites. You have to understand it this way. In many times, especially if you're talking about large investment, you will do foundation very early on. For example, let's say you want to build an apartment complex, you will lay the foundation even though you don't have the money to complete the building. Because once you show that, like once you show the people, hey dude, I have already started building this, this is a real, this is getting serious, then you get a lot more investment. So SpaceX is doing that. And not to mention, you are talking about technology that nobody has built before, nobody has figured out how to work before, so they have to figure out those technology also. So in that time, they're like, let's use this. Now you might be like, what is the problem if it's working? Right now there are beta testing going on, so what is the problem? Problem is the Falcon 9 is not powerful enough. The rocket does work, the rocket is usable, but it's not good enough. So fundamentally, if they use this puppy to, like, okay, let's build a complete satellite constellation, which is upwards of 4,000 satellites bare minimum, basically they will be in a position where they keep launching satellites, and older ones will keep falling out of sky because it cannot launch enough quick enough. So basically your input rate would be 1 liter, output rate is also 1 liter. So satellite would be always, like SpaceX will have a division, just keep launching rockets, just keep launching rocket. And another aspect, Falcon 9 is not very reusable. ASK second stage, poof, and the first stage booster that does come back and does save them significant amount of money, it can only be reused for 6 to 10 times. 10 times is upper maximum, and they have never reached it. So fundamentally their current technology does not allow them to, like, go YOLO on it, but it does allow them to figure out the technology, lay the groundwork, get everything sorted, and then they can bet their money on what we call Starship. Everything is relying on Starship to work. The reason for that, Starship would be much cheaper. You're like, wait a minute, how the heck a bigger rocket would be cheaper? Simply because it's 100% reusable, aka no longer second stage, poof, no, everything goes up, everything comes back, everything is awesome. So that's the main point. So even though a rocket is bigger, even though the capital money they are pouring into is bigger, it will come back in much less loss situation. So that's awesome. Another aspect is, in a Falcon 9 scenario, it does not have oomph, it does not have the ability to carry more than 60 satellite. This puppy, the Starship, on paper, at least what they are going for right now, is 400. So they, not only this puppy can take care of one orbital plane, it's like, okay, let's send this rocket, this orbital plane, we got this, everything is taken care of. But when you send this, you will have ability of covering 6 orbital plane in one go. So that's fundamentally a big improvement. So they're like, okay, this whole sector of space, I got this. One rocket, I got this. Another aspect, even though this rocket would be expensive, its engines are running on methane rather than running on kerosene. Kerosene is sooty, kerosene destroys engine. So fundamentally the rocket engine is limited by 10 reuse cycles. This puppy on paper is at 50. So even if they do not reach that 50, even if they reach 40, you can understand that point. So that's why SpaceX is going full steam ahead for 3 reasons. First, they have to figure this out, how the heck this works, how the heck we're gonna sell it, like everything they have to figure out the logistic. Another aspect, this will allow investors to be like, they have actually built it, they are actually selling it, why not, let's invest money into this. So that's 2. Number 3, they are betting on themselves. It's like, we're gonna figure out Starship. Again, it may take more than 4 years, it may take, let's say, 6 or 7. They are hoping for that, once it's done, at that point they will retire Falcon 9 and they're like, we got this. At this point they're like, okay, in 1 month we launch one sector we launch, and we launch, in case of emergency, in case of space debris, we launch other satellites. But other than that, they're like, we got this. So they won't, satellite won't be like, oh, satellite constellation launch 1 is now failing, so okay, now do another launch. Okay, satellite constellation 2 is failing, now do a second launch. They will they no longer will be chasing their own tail. So SpaceX is in very serious position. So, but even with all those serious limitations, the fact exists, they have already launched 700 satellites. They are like so far ahead, they are like 10 times ahead than OneWeb, because OneWeb is 70 below, this puppy is 700 above. So fundamentally there is no competition here. Another aspect for many Indian viewers is very interesting. What will happen to Jio? Like there are videos like, will Jio end? Fundamentally, as a customer, as a Jio fiber customer, we want competition, and I am very grateful that Geo Fiber improved, because Airtel started, the company that is buying this puppy, started their own fiber connection system known as Extreme. So I'm very grateful for that. Now if you guys are interested, write down that in comment. I will do a long-term Geo review, because I have been using this system for around 6 months, and it has improved dramatically, simply because there was a competitor. Other than, before that, they were trolling. They were just like, what are you gonna do, you don't have any other option. So removing that ego from a company is necessary for customer satisfaction. So fundamentally I'm very happy with this. However, satellite internet is fundamentally not efficient. It never was, never could be. There is a reason we use undersea fiber cable rather than satellites. Fundamentally it cannot be done. So the only way you can even begin to like, okay, maybe we can do that, is simply because by reducing launch cost. Satellites are not expensive. You can mass produce them like the, like, cotton candy, like how you make a laptop or something like that. That's not expensive part. If you mass produce it, the cost will go down. However, rockets are still non-mass producible. So fundamentally, the only company that can even imagine is like, I may be able to pull this off, is a company that has reduced the price of launches by a significant amount. And the only company, the only corporation that is even capable of saying that is SpaceX. That's why SpaceX can do this. At least they can hope for it. There is some serious probability they might not go bankrupt, like how Iridium went. So fundamentally SpaceX can do that. Now there is another aspect of this. You can do a satellite internet provider same way there are satellite phone providers, and they work. It's a real thing. It's a, like, how do you think oil rigs are connected with World Wide Web? It does work. The problem was per head cost was too high. Now why the heck per head cost was too high? Because again, the system was expensive. So how can you reduce the per head cost? Basically, how much as a single individual I have to pay? You sell it to many more individuals. Okay, awesome. But here's that's the paradox. You do not have a lot of people in rural areas. So people are like, hard to reach area do not have hundreds and millions of people. So fundamentally the head count is low. So even if you want to do that, many people will always look at satellite internet as like, I have nothing else, that's why I'm getting that. So that creates a paradox. And if you're like, okay, what if a rural town that has not been touched and we are covering that, let's say another company detects, say, hey, wait a minute, there are enough people, there is enough demand, laying down normal fiber is much cheaper, fundamentally much cheaper. And many places have bad internet simply because there is no competition. So the moment competition comes, a serious thing, oh, whoa, you wait a minute, you are actually providing good service, here's deal. Remove the bottlenecks that we are placing there. That's all they have to do. Like, that's what Geo had to do for my internet to become better. They had artificial limits on there, and the only reason that artificial limits was removed simply because there was a competitor. Now I could get a connection that is like, whoa, not artificially limited. So that is why fundamentally we want competition. So space internets are always limited by this fact. It's like, how the heck you gonna compete with terrestrial systems? And this whole idea of rural places and all that, there are not enough people there. That's why it's called rural. And not to mention per head cost would be another problematic aspect. So these things combined together, it's like in a position where it's like barely it's gonna work, barely. Now SpaceX will work simply because they have reduced the price on the other front. Rather than per head cost, they have to sell, rather than selling billions of connections, they are like, hey, we can only make our money back if we sell million connections, simply because their rockets are cheaper and they have already launched many of them. So fundamentally, is Geo in any danger? No, right now, no. What about African coverage of other systems and all that? Because Bharti Airtel is very huge there, very ludicrously huge. It might pan out very well for them, because in those sort of scenario where everything is rural area, it might pan out better. But I do not think it's a competition to, like, Geo Fiber and all that jazz. So this was my presentation on this deal of basically Oneweb bought by Airtel. I hope you liked it, learn from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike. Press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment, because I try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.